All right, common trumpet problem, sticky valves. I'm going to show you how to figure out whether the problem is in the piston or the casing or both and what can be done to fix it. So, let's check out this Bach TR300 trumpet here, one of the most common student level trumpets you might encounter. Very first thing I want to show you, pro tip on this, you might get a student who opens one of these for the very first time, says, okay, cool, here's my trumpet. Hey, this was supposed to come with a mouthpiece and some valve oil and slide grease and a bunch of other stuff, but I don't see it anywhere. I've just got the trumpet body. These cases are the bane of my existence. I get this at least once a year from somebody in trumpet tech. It's got this trap door kind of mechanism here, and that's where you store your accessories. In a way, it's cool because there's a lot more room for accessories than most instrument cases have, but a lot of students won't realize it. Especially, imagine a beginner. If I'm getting the question from college music ed majors, imagine what a fourth grader is going to do. So, if you happen to encounter this, make sure they know you might have to lift it up the trap door to find your accessories in this case. Alright. I'll get the case out of the way here. Got my trumpet, and on this trumpet, all the valves are good. But let's pretend they're not. Let's pretend that just the first valve isn't going up and down for some reason. 2's good, 3's good, 1, we're going to pretend it's not good. Now, how do we know if the problem is the piston itself, if it's the casing, which is the part that the piston goes through, or if both have a problem? Well, we're going to use one of the casings and pistons that we know is good to figure it out. So, we know 2 is good and we know 3 is good. So, those are going to be kind of our control group. We know they work all right. So, I'm going to take number 2, get it out of the way. I'm going to take out number 1. And these are not interchangeable for playing, but they are all the same size. So, I would be able to determine if there's a problem with the piston, then it wouldn't go up and down in number 2, because we know the casing for number 2 is good. So we were having a problem with 1, I took the piston from 1, I put it into number 2, and if it goes up and down, then we know the problem is not in the piston. Likewise, I've got the piston from number 2. I put it in the casing for number 1. We know that piston's good, we don't know about the casing. If that doesn't go up and down, then we know the problem is in the number 1 casing. If we make the switch and both don't go up and down, we know there's a problem with both. 9 times out of 10, the problem is going to be with the casing and not the piston. Usually if it takes any kind of force to the instrument, the casing's going to absorb it all, and as long as the piston doesn't get, dropped outside of the casing, it's probably going to be okay. So, get number 2 back in its home here. Maybe. There we go. Okay, so we're going to pretend that there's a problem with the first casing. Well, how do we fix that? So chances are it's a little bit out of round, it might have a small dent in it. We've got to find a way to make this casing true again. So, we are going to use some tools that look kind of like that. So that's the one we're going to use. It's the casing mandrel, and if there's a problem with the piston, we're going to use that. It's the piston sleeve. So these come from Ferree's tools, and they are all different sizes. They'll have a number on them. Hopefully you can see that, 665 on this one. That's 665 thousandth of an inch diameter. That's what that number means. And so I've got a bunch of them here. I've got more than this, but here's just 4 that I grabbed. So how do I know which one fits this trumpet? It's a really, really hard thing to measure, so I would say don't even try to measure it. What you want to do is get your Ferree's catalog. This is available online. So you just go to Ferree's Tools website to look this up. I will also upload a copy of this, but you're going to go to page number 46, and this grid shows you what size every make and model takes. Well, not every one, but a lot of them, the most common makes and models here. And then there's a grid on the top for cornet or trumpet, alto horn mellophone, valve trombone, baritone, euphonium, E-flat tuba, B-flat tuba, so on and so forth. So you'll just use the grid to figure out what the appropriate size is. So I'm going to go under trumpet, and I'm going to go to Bach, and it says it should be 664. Okay, this says 664. Let's see if 664 works. Got my 664 tool right there. Won't go in. Okay. Let's check the piston. Piston goes in, and that's probably really hard to see, but it is way too big. I can see that this is not the appropriate size. And if it's the sleeve is too big, of course it's going to go in, but it's not going to be a good fit, and that's not going to help us fit anything. So something's wrong there. What could possibly be the problem with that, do you think? And I'll tell you what the problem is. Even though this is a Bach trumpet, so Bach right there, it's the exact same specs as a Bundy trumpet. Conselmer bought Bundy. They used virtually the exact same specs as Bundy when they did their first line of instruments, of student-level instruments. So really, this isn't even a Bach. We got to check Bundy for this. And I go to Bundy, and oh, it's 650, not 664 under Bundy. So let me go to the appropriate size. There's my 650. Yeah, I know, it's a super pain. It makes no sense. Imagine having to try to make a living when they use ridiculous terminology like this. So there's my 650. Hey, my 650, that goes in pretty good. Not really any extra wiggle. Goes through nice and smooth. So if there was a problem, I would get out the rawhide mallet, and with that mandrel fully inserted all the way through to the bottom, bunch of little taps like that, and that'll get back into being perfectly round, perfectly trued in no time. If there was a problem with the piston, same deal. Gonna put the piston in the sleeve. Watch your fingers. Rotate it. As many times as it takes to get that moving freely. So let's do one. This trumpet works fine, but I'll damage it just for you guys. So, everything's working good. We'll simulate a mouthpiece rolling free in the case. And let's see, right about there maybe. A nice little dent that I just put in. Oh, it's still working. Try the other end. Hey, there we go. So, not working. Obviously, I just smashed the casing. We know the casing is a problem. Is the piston a problem? Well, I'm not sure. So, let's check it out. So again, remember, I know the number 2 casing is good. I don't know if the piston's okay or not. And so, like I said, 9 out of 10 times, it's not going to go through to the valve. This is one of those 9 times. Even though I smashed it with a metal hammer, the piston is okay. But the casing is not. So, just putting number 2 back in the number 2 casing. I'm going to put my mandrel into the number 1 casing. You can see it doesn't want to go down all the way because it's hitting that dent. So I'm just going to force it the rest of the way. Now I'm just going to hit it, do like 4, 5, 6 times maybe, rotate a quarter turn. Hitting it from every angle, and you might have just seen that. Now it wants to drop. Gonna do it a few more times just for good measure. You can tell I'm not hitting it that hard. Maybe 3 or 4 out of 10 for as hard as I could hit this. And we're back in business. Put the cap on. Always do try it one final time with the cap on, just because if that gets really out of round, the cap can make a little bit of a difference. And we're good. Number 1 is back to functional. You'll still be able to see where the dent was a bit on the outside there. You can see that distortion. I mean, it's a 40-year-old student level trumpet. It's got a few other distortions on it, as you can see. So that's really not going to be a big deal. We're just going for functionality here. So that is how you would fix a casing dent on a trumpet or any piston instrument. They make these tools. They just make really big ones for baritones, euphoniums, and tubas even. They all come in different sizes, so there's a lot to think about if you were stocking a shop. What sizes would you want? Well, anything that you do rentals for, you would of course want those sizes. Say there's a competing music store and you see some of their stuff and they're always renting out Jupiters, you would want the Jupiter size. If you're renting Yamahas, you want the Yamaha size. So you would want to consult that list in the Ferree's tools catalog and get the ones that you're going to see most often. There's nothing wrong with you know, not having one and needing to special order it, but you got to figure that's going to be about a week of downtime for your customer while that tool's coming in. So you got to kind of balance the cost of it. These things are not cheap. You can look it up on the Ferree's website exactly how much it is, but I mean, I think they're $50, $60 a piece. So you don't want to stock ones that you could never use, but you also want to keep up that fast turnaround time for your clients.